Hey y'all, it's Nomadic Shaman here. Thank you so much for visiting my page. This video is going to be a continuation of the last video. One thing I wanted to bring up, the last video, not this one, but the one beforehand, where it's the one of a boat, I believe it was the Six of Wands card, you'll notice that my hands were shaking, which caused the phone to shake. And if you look at the card, they were in water on a boat. And it also gave the feeling as if you were on a boat. Now, everything that I do in a reading, it factors in. Okay. So that to me confirms that someone either had a boat or somebody was legit traveling on a boat. Okay. When they were transporting Nancy Guthrie's body. I tried not to say it because I didn't want to come across as insensitive, but as a medium, she transitioned, y'all. Okay, she transitioned. Now, the next thing I will say is, the next thing. So this whole particular case seems to be like a fucking shit show. I have watched a few videos of spiritualists and psychics, ones who are, for the majority of the time, on point, surgical with it, okay? But there seems to be things that pop up here, you know what I'm saying? Just different things, and it's just a reflective of what's going on within the news and the media of how this case is being handled. Okay, like a straight up shit show circus. Now, the reason why I say that is all intentional. It's all a form of distraction. However, if we really zoom in, because as I was pulling cards and I had more cards and more cards and more cards, not necessarily on here, but off camera, the deeper I got, the darker this case got. I said, oh shit. So this is what they're trying to hide, okay? Now, what I will say is, I may or may not do a video on that, but what I will say is, this whole particular case is organized crime. Organized crime is written all over it. You have people in all places, high and low, that is part of this. I'm talking about in law enforcement, could be the FBI. Okay, I'm not saying that exactly, but I definitely know people in law enforcement. Okay, as it pertains to this case, you have people who are in, we'll say, neighbors, folks in the church group. You got friends, you got family. Everybody has a role to play, that everybody has some level or form of involvement for a payout as it relates to this case. Overall, this was a sacrifice. And folks who have mentioned beforehand, okay, it's almost like, or it appears, or it seems like the approach or the treatment of Nancy Guthrie was, what do you call it? As if she was being trafficked. Make no mistake, she was being trafficked. It's called energy trafficking. Okay. Now, what I will say is, in addition to that, you have also folks in the news, in the media that play a role, that have involvement in this in some form of payout. Everybody's payout looks different from one another. Some can be reputation as a payout, fame as a payout, money as a payout, access as a payout, network as a payout, promotion as a payout. Access to particular groups that provide gateways, energy as a payout. Okay. You have blue collar workers. You have, where are we on time? I'm good on time. Okay. The other thing that I didn't mention, or I forgot to mention before I continue, was Spirit confirmed to me that Nancy was moved at least 3 times. 3 times. Okay. The other part that I wanted to mention, oh no, we're not going to do that. The other part that I wanted to mention is you have people who take on blue collar jobs, roles, who happen to be in the neighborhood that day, probably a week before, 2 weeks before, scoping out the scene before the plan was enacted on. Okay, so when I say this was orchestrated down to the T detail, it was orchestrated. Okay. Um, yeah, y'all. So, um, and that therein lies a distraction. Okay. Wanting you to focus on optical illusions as things are staged and implanted and various news coverage and media continuously, putting this in our faces, hoping that people lose sight of what the real issue is. Okay. However, this is an opportunity to bring light and focus on the issue. Okay. And I specifically say that there are people who pick up on the issue as far as what this case represents. Okay. The underlining of it. And then there are some folks who practice divination, spiritualists, who have picked up on what the true issue is. All right. So I'm going to leave this here, and then I'll catch you on the other side, guys. Peace out.